Hey folks, welcome to the Triple T Thursday. For those just joining us, that's Tools, Tips, and Talk, where we'll discuss info for the knife maker. Today we continue our Takedown Bowie series, and today we're going to finish the fittings and the back half of the knife, including the handle. Next week we're going to finish the blade, do the hot blackening on the fittings, and finish it all up. Let's go take a look. So I'm starting this week by bedding the ricasso into the guard, and this just gives you a perfect fit and makes sure you have no gaps. Here I'm using my high-speed rotary tool that spins at 320,000 RPMs just to dig out the area underneath the ricasso. Now it's time to put some shape on the guard. I'm using my integral bolster grinding attachment from Broadbeck just so I can get access to that part of the guard. It works really well. So I got the guard all contoured. I might need to narrow it out just a little bit, but we'll figure that out later. Next would be the spacer. So what I've done is obviously put layout fluid. I always mark the spacers with G for guard and S for spine. So I know that it's always going to be this orientation. And I mark the other side with handle. Whoops, see, I even got it wrong. With handle spine. So I know that it's always going to go in the right direction. I'm not going to get it flipped. That's really important to mark these things. So now I can just get it in there and then draw around it on top of my layout fluid, and then we'll know what we're going to grind to. This carbon fiber moves really well on the grinder, but folks, make sure you're wearing your PPEs, your respirators, because this stuff goes everywhere. Now I'm using the 4-inch wheel on my platen. I've got my rest on an angle just so I can put the exact same bevel on both sides of the handle. Okay, folks, now I want to put some scallops, on this guard. They'll basically be scallops like this. So I've put some layout fluid and I've drawn a marker here and here. So that's where I want that scallop to be removed from. We're going to be doing this on the small wheel, and I'm going to show you how to get that exact angle. So I've got the small wheel set up here. I've got my rest tilted, and just to know if you've got the right angle, what you do is you take this line, put it right on this edge. Okay, and then I'm just looking down this way to make sure that this line is right over top of this. And if it's not, that's when you want to tilt your rest back or forward to make sure that these line up vertically. And once they do, you know that's where your scallop's going to be. I started with the small wheel attachment with a 1-inch wheel and realized that the scallop was just too short, so I ended up moving to a 2-inch wheel. One really important piece here is make sure your scallop is centered to the blade, not to the guard. It looks off otherwise. So I want to talk about fittings now. So you can see I've got them all ground pretty much to the right dimensions. I have to put some tapers and stuff back here, but pretty much to where I want them. I haven't put all the embellishments in, so that's what we're going to talk about now. Before we get there, I want to talk about the museum fit. Okay, so the museum fit on this kind of knife is typically what you're going to do. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So instead of me trying to show you on these tiny little parts, I figured I would show you in kind of a zoomed in version. So here's the guard, okay? Then we've got the spacer, which is ground exactly the same, meaning it fits here, okay? Then the handle comes up like this and like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be chamfering the edge of the handle. Okay, and this is accentuated. This is about a 32nd or maybe a little less. So we're just going to put a little tiny 45 on this right here. Here, we're also going to put a tiny little chamfer on each of these edges. And I was trying to figure out what I want to do with the spacer. So this is what I came up with. I think it's actually going to be like that. Here, I'll zoom in on this so you can see this. There. So this is gold inlay, and this is just kind of a radius done with a needle file. And then that tiny little chamfer. There's no chamfer on this side because this meets it exactly. So there's no point chamfering this. It will just look odd. So these are the kind of things you need to think about when you're putting this kind of construction together. And I'll show you when I do this how I'm going to do all these. On the other end, okay, so pretend this is the other end of the handle all the way down here. Same kind of thing. The handle is like this, and then we've got the pommel again, which is like this. We're going to put the same chamfer here and here. There's going to be gold inlay, just a thin strip of gold inlay right here, and then we're going to chamfer, or kind of put a radius on the rest, this a little thicker, on the rest, and then we've got, actually it goes like this. We're going to put gold inlay right here on the pommel nut. I'm actually using a 1000 grit belt from Broadbeck here, just to put a clean little chamfer that I don't have to sand later. I'm also spinning the pommel nut in a drill against this 1000 grit belt, just to put some finish on it. So before doing any engraving or inlay work, I always want to sharpen my gravers. This is a great template from Lindsay Engraving, which is my engraving setup. You just put the graver in here, there's different plates, and it's set up for perfect angles. Nice and sharp. The first step to doing inlay here is to make a channel. So I'm using a flat graver and just making a channel beside my line. And you guys don't see it, but I'm actually using a microscope in order to be able to do this quite accurately. The next step here is just use another tool and put some dovetails for the gold to stick into so it doesn't come out. And lastly, of course, the fun part is taking the 24 karat gold inlay and mashing it into the channel. I'm using a brass rod here just so I don't damage the base metal. Now that the inlay is all done, we just got to sand it and make it look pretty. So here we are finished with the gold inlay. It's come out really nice. Sanded to just past 220. I still have to do the relief on this one right here, and then of course bevel this guy. To do this bevel, I'm using the house-made tilt table, and funny enough, I got the Broadbeck version of this attachment in the mail the day after I did this. Well, I've done all the fittings. I'll show you those in a minute. Now it's time to put that little chamfer around the edge here, so I'm just going to take my height gauge and just scribe a little line. It's only, maybe a millimeter or a 32nd, something like that, away from the edge. All right, now let's go over to the grinder. I've got my platen set up at a 45-degree angle, and we're just going to slowly take that down to that line. So here it is, folks. The fittings all done. These are buffed. They might need a little buffing, little touch-ups, but They are pretty much done. The handle still needs a little more sanding, but you can see the bevels here. The gold inlay, which is going to pop a lot more after next week. But I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Next week's episode is going to be hot blacking these, finishing the blade, and just doing overall finish work. So stay tuned for that. We'll be finishing up in next week's episode. Thanks for joining, folks. We'll see you next time.